Okay, Be'ezer Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Basra daf Kuf Ayin Dalid, and we're going to just start with Kuf Ayin Beis Amid Beis, about that one third down from the beginning of the page. We're just going to do a little catch up over here, but we're discussing over here the concept of a guarantor. How do you know that if someone says he's going to guarantee a loan, just by verbalizing that, you're responsible? That means that the lender, in case the borrower can't pay, can go after the lender. Okay, so hold on. Hi, Sheldon.
Okay.
Hi, Sheldon. We just began. We're on
Okay, great.
Gimel Amid Beis, and the Gemara is discussing over here the source of how is it that you know that if someone verbally commits himself to be a guarantor on a loan, so that he has to follow through in case the borrower can't pay, then they can go after the guarantor. And that's in anything. You know, if you sign a lease with somebody and with a college kid, you always take a guarantor, his parents. There, they're actually signing onto something. Here, a person is a verbal guarantor. How do you know just by verbalizing it, you become responsible? How do you know an Orev, a guarantor, is responsible? Because Pasuk says, Anochi Erev Enem Yadi Tivakshenu. Yehuda said to Yaakov Avinu, send Binyamin with me, and I guarantee that I'm going to return Binyamin back to you. So therefore, you see the concept of Orev in the Torah. So Maskiv Rav Chizda asked the question, HaKablanisi. That is an unconditional guarantee. An unconditional guarantee means you're almost like saying, I'm not guaranteeing him, I'm taking the place of him. To know Oisa al Yodivani Ashivenu. It's like a commitment by the person himself. That's not what a guarantor is. A guarantor means you're really lending the borrower. I'm just a backup. How do you know that there's a concept? How do you know there's a concept of a backup as a guarantor? Hi, Alan. We're just began and we're discussing the source of a guarantor. Ella, we're on Kuf Ayin Gimel Amid Beis. Ella Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Mahacha. Rabbi Yitzchak said it's from a pasuk in Mishlei. Lekach bigdei ki arev zar uvad nachriya chavleu. Take the clothing from a strange guarantor, uvad nachriya, and from a strange woman chavleu, take a collateral. V'omer, and there is another pasuk that uses the word guarantor. Bini, my son, Mishlei says, if you became a guarantor for your friend, you shook your hands with your friend, with a stranger, because with the verbalizing that you're going to be the guarantor, you're setting up a stumbling block. It's a trap with the words of your mouth. Do this, follow this advice, be not so and be saved, because your hand came into the hand of the palm of your friend. Lech hisrapes rahav yedecha. What does that mean? If you can afford it, then open your hand. V'im lav, if you can't do that, in other words, let's say you get the pashut of the translation of the pasuk is if you get into a fight with your friend, harbe olav reyim, then ask friends to intervene on your behalf to make shalom. But basically, we found a source that there's a concept called an orev, a guarantor, and a guarantor can become a guarantor just by imre ficha, by just verbalizing without signing any documents. You could become the responsible guarantor. Omar Ameima, Omar Arev Shtabet Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yosi. Not everybody agrees that an Arev becomes responsible. That really is a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi, according to Rabbi Yosi, that says asmachta kanya, like a smachta is like it's like an inconclusive consent. In other words, when you make a bet with somebody, so who knows? It could be that you don't really mean what you say to follow through. So Rabbi Yossi says, no, whatever comes out of your mouth, you must follow through. So according to Rabbi Yossi, Arev Mishtabi, then just by guaranteeing as an Orev, you become responsible. Because if you think about it, an Orev, a responsible person, gets no benefit. He's not the one that's borrowing the money, somebody else is. And he's just saying, I'll guarantee it. By verbalizing it, according to Rabbi Yossi, you have to follow through. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the Ama Asmachta Loikanya, a smachta would not make you inconclusive consent will not make you acquire something or follow through whatever comes out of your mouth. Just by saying that you're a guarantor, you don't have to follow through. Says the Gemara, but that's not true. We hold that if you make a shock, a outlandish statement, obviously you don't have to follow through because we know you don't mean it. But if someone says he's a guarantor, we make everybody follow through and become responsible. Elo Omar Rashi says that really an Orev does become responsible because he does get benefit. Yes, the borrower gets the benefit, but the Orev also gets a benefit. And in exchange for that benefit, he will guarantee the loan. What's the benefit that he gets? That in that benefit, that enjoyment that he has, that you trust him, and that you are going to trust this loan and make the loan to the person he says so, that you're guaranteeing for, Gomar Mishtab Nafshi. He commits himself and to really follow through on his commitment and become responsible in case the borrower doesn't pay. So basically, we have a resource that if someone is a guarantor, he has to pay. Now the question is, which we're going to discuss now in the Gemara. Our Mishnah said, "Vim Omar al Manash Epore Mimish Erza." So if the Mishnah says, the Mishnah seems to imply that if you have in the loan document with the guarantor, and the loan document says that, or you verbalize, the lender said, I'm giving you this loan on condition, if I want, I can collect from the guarantor without going directly to the borrower. I want to collect from the guarantor first. So, Amar Rabba Babachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the only time you can go to a guarantor is only if there's no valuables by the borrower. But if the borrower still has money to pay, you can't go to the Orev first, even if you stipulated in the loan that you have a right to do so. If the borrower still has possessions and the capabilities and the finances to pay the loan, you cannot go to the guarantor. Says the Gemara of Amidik Tani Seva, but the end of the Mishnah says, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel it's Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion that if there's no possessions, that if the borrower still has finances, you can't pay from the guarantor. Michlal, from this we can derive the Tana Kamasava, the first Tana of our Mishnah holds, it makes no matter if he has money or not, you're allowed to go to the guarantor first. But the Gemara says, you're right, but wrong. The Mishnah is missing a few basic words. Mishnah says, if you lend your friend through a guarantor, you cannot pay, you shouldn't pay from the guarantor first. You first have to go to the borrower to collect your debt. And then if the borrower can't pay, then you go to the guarantor. Vim Omar if you said on condition that I can get my loan back from whoever I want, then you can get paid back from the guarantor. But here's the change. When do we say you can go to the guarantor? When there is no finances by the borrower. If the borrower has still finances, no matter what, even if you stipulated you can get paid back from the guarantor, you should not go to the guarantor. You first have to go to the borrower. But there is one exception. The kablam, someone who is a kablam. A kablam is an unconditional guarantor, which means that he's almost like saying to the lender, it's like you lend me the money and I'm lending it to the borrower. In other words, the kablan is like saying, giving a shlichus to the lender, lend it, as if you're lending it to me. So basically, in that case, It's almost as if the lender is lending it to the guarantor directly. So there, in that case, even if the borrower still had the finances, you put him in a kablam, you can go after the kablam. That's called the kablam, the unconditional guarantor. We go to the top of Kufayin Dalal Rabban Aleph. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Oimem Yesh Nechasim L'Loiva Echad Zeh Ve'Echad Zeh Lo Yipar Mehem. It doesn't matter if there's always finances by the initial borrower. It doesn't matter if you're a kablan or a regular arev. You're not allowed to go to the guarantors. You must go first to the borrower. Now says the Gemara, Amar Rabba Baba Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Mokum Shoshana Rav Shimon ben Gamliel b'Mishnah Seinu. Wherever you find Rav Shimon ben Gamliel's name in our Mishnah, in the Mishnayos, halacha kamaisa. You're supposed to follow the halachas like him. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is you always follow. Except in the following cases. May Orev by here, by an Orev Kablam, we call him the Kablam. We don't paskin like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, but we hold that the lender can actually go to the Kablam even before he goes to the borrower. There's other cases where we will not paskin like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, but most of the time in the Mishnayos, we paskin like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna said. Now Rav Huna is saying, so now we learned that there's two types of guarantor. A regular guarantor is called an orev. A kablan is a specialized guarantor where he basically says to the lender, really, I am making you my messenger to lend somebody money. But really, you're lending me the money, but I'm like, you're lending me the money, I'm giving it back to you so that you can lend the borrower. In that case, you're a kablan. So how do you know if a guy is a kablan or just a plain guarantor? Rav Huna said, if you use lend him the money, you use these kind of languages. Said, they're all examples of somebody being a guarantor because you're basically the guarantor saying, you're not lending me the money, you're lending him the money. But if the guarantor says the following language, ten loy, I want you to give him the money, vani kablam, ten loy, vani pereya, give it to him and I'll pay back, ten loy, vani chayv, and I'm obligated, ten loy, vani noisim, kulin loshin kablon, say. That is considered as if a guarantor, an unconditional guarantor, because you're saying, Tenloy, I want you to give it to him. In other words, you're loaning me the money, I'm giving it back to you so that I'm making you a messenger to give it to that other person, to lend the money. In that case, you're called a kablam, a higher form of a guarantor. Let's say, Ibailu, classic Gemara, if a person uses two different languages, you first use halveu, lend him. So you're implying that you're a regular guarantor. Vani kablan, and I'm an unconditional guarantor. So he basically said, lend him the money, and I'm the unconditional guarantor. So two things are coming out of his mouth. Ten loy, vani orev. If he says give to him, so now he's a kablan, vani orev, and I'm a guarantor. So what is he? Do you look at the first words that come out of his mouth or the second words that come out of his mouth? Rabbi Yitzchak explained lashon arvis, lashon kablanis. He is, you look at the first word. He used halveu, he's a orev. If you use ten loy, then he's a kablan, and we don't look at what comes out after that. Once you say what you are in the beginning, so that's what we look at. Rav Chizda says, kulan lashon kablanisu. They're all kablanis, bar halveu vani orev. In other words, you're always an unconditional guarantor. You're unconditionally a guarantor, even if you say halveu. You said a kablan. If you say tenlo, you're an unconditional guarantor. You're a kablan. But the only time you're not a kablan is so we assume the worst, that the guy is a kablan. But if you want to be a regular arev, you have to use two languages. Halveu, lend him, bani arev, and I'm a regular guarantor. That's Rav Chizda's opinion. Rava Amar, it's the opposite. Kulan lashon arvisin. We always assume the benefit of the doubt that you're not an unconditional kablan type of guarantor. Every time it comes out of your mouth, even if it looks contradictory, we assume you're a regular arev. Bar, except if you use ten loy bani noisein, if you say give it to him, and I'm going to give you back. So basically, that is a kablan type of situation where there's no way else to interpret it. So you're a kablan, and therefore you're a higher form of a guarantor. Ama le Marbar Meimer Rav Ashi. Marbar Meimer said to Rav Ashi, Hachi Ama Aber. This is what my father Ameimer said. Mar, the son of Ameimer, said to Rav Ashi, my father Ameimer said, if a man says ten loy ba'ani noisim, if a guy says to you, like let's say the guarantor says, you give him, and I'm going to give you to ein lamalba al loy v'klum, then basically he's only lending the guarantor. He's not even lending the money to the borrower, because it's almost as though you cut out the borrower. It's just a relationship between the lender and the guarantor. That's what Ameimer went even further than the rest of our understanding of a kabbalah. V'lohi, it's not true. At the end of the day, the borrower still cannot exempt himself from dealing with the lender, because he's the one that's in the end receiving the money. Until the lender gives it to the guarantor and the guarantor lends it directly to the borrower. So then then there is no borrower dealing with the lender. It's just the guarantor dealing with the lender. But generally speaking, if you're a higher form of guarantor, so you're a kabbalah, so even though the borrower got the money, the lender has a choice. He can either go after the borrower, or he can go after even if the borrower still has money to pay, he can go after the guarantor. Says the Gemara, a story. Ahu Dayana, there was this judge, okay, and he was so meticulous in his work, he got fired. How did he get fired? Because a lender said, I want to collect my debt. So what did the judge do? He went to Achte Lamalva Lenixte de Loive Mekamed Letave Loive. He took the lender to the possessions of the borrower, and he let them confiscate the possessions of the borrower before the borrower had a chance to even offer himself to pay the loan. So he just overreacted and had the borrower's possessions confiscated to pay a loan without giving the borrower a chance to pay. Now, the borrower, to pay back a loan, it's his mitzvah to pay back a loan. When you borrow money, it's a mitzvah to pay back the loan. So he took away the mitzvah of the borrower to pay directly the loan. So Salke Rav Chanan Berer de Rav Yeva. Rav Chanan, the son of Rav Yeva, fired this judge. Amar Rava said, Man chakam lemebe kahamilsa. Who's smart enough to do this thing, to fire a judge? It's a good thing. Ilav Rav Chanan Barei de Ravia. If it wasn't for Rav Chanan, the son of Rav Yeva, he did a great thing. Nobody's as smart as him to fire a judge for doing that. Because really, Kisavar, why did the judge do wrong? So the judge did wrong because really, who's responsible to pay? The money is not the money is responsible to pay, or the possessions. The borrower is responsible to pay. He himself, his body. And Kisavar, Rav Chanan held, Nichsei debar inish inim arvin yase. A person's possessions are just his guarantor, and you never go utnan hamalvas chaver de arv. If you lend your friend and there's a guarantor, lo yiparim in arv. You don't go after the guarantors. You don't go after the guarantor first. Even if the guarantor, whether the guarantor is in the form of another person or the guarantor is the borrower's possessions. The kaimalan you don't go to the guarantor first. You have to go to the borrower first and ask him to pay. So it was good that this judge got fired. Says the Gemara, another story. There was a man who died, okay, and he borrowed money. His guarantor paid up the loan of his deceased friend, right? He was the guarantor. And now he's coming back to the orphans, the young orphans who are under bar mitzvah, and he said, I paid back your father's loan because I was the guarantor. So again, now the kids owe the guarantor money. Now the kids to pay the guarantor is like a verbal loan, because now they just verbally owe the guarantor money. It's not written in a document that they owe the guarantor money. But Amar Papa, Priyas Balchoiv mitzvah, to pay back a loan is a mitzvah. The Yasme, because they're under bar mitzvah, lav b'nei mitzvah ninu. They can't pay back the loan to the guarantor because they're not capable of doing mitzvahs. You have to wait till they turn over bar mitzvah. So that is the opinion of Papa. They don't have to pay. So these kids don't have to pay. He says another reason why. they don't have to pay. Because who said the guarantor did a good thing? Maybe before the guy died, he actually maybe the guy that died, their father, actually dropped off a bag of money to the lender, and the lender really, got paid back. So that no one asked the guarantor to do this. So it's possible, but maybe most likely it didn't happen. But it's possible it happened, and therefore the Yisoimin would have the option to say such a claim. And they can't make a claim because they're under bar mitzvah. So you have to wait till they're over bar mitzvah if they want to make such a claim. Says the Gemara, we go to Kuf Ayin Vav and Beis. My Benai, what's the difference between the two opinions, between both Rav Huna and Rav Papa's opinion? Both seem to say that these young kids don't have to pay, these young Yisayim. And says the Gemara, Ika Benai Kishachayev Moida. When the guy before he died agreed that he never paid the loan, and then he died. That was his last words. So according to Rav Papa, still the boys don't have to pay because they're not over bar mitzvah. According to Rav Huna, they would have to pay because we can't assume there's money paid back, that the father left money and paid the loan. When he said before he died, he didn't pay the loan. The guy, the father that died, he was in Cherem, and he was Cherem. He was put in Cherem because he wasn't paying his loan back. So we know for a fact he never paid his loan. So if we know for a fact that he didn't pay his loan, then the young kids, according to Rav Huna, would have to pay their loan. According to Rav Papa, they don't have to pay their loan because they're under bar mitzvah, and they have to wait till they're over bar mitzvah to do the mitzvah, paying the loan back to the guarantor. Shalchu mitam. They asked the question from there, from Bavel. Shamtu meis b'shamte. If a guy, if the guy was put in Cherem and he died in Cherem, and therefore because he wasn't paying his loans back, so the father died and he didn't pay his loans back. The hilkasa karav Yehuna b'rei Yeshua. The halach is like Rav Huna b'rei Yeshua, that the boys have to pay the guarantor. So if that's the case, Meisvei, I'll ask you a question. A guarantor that said that is holding on to the loan document. So basically, the guarantor paid the lender, and now the lender, in exchange, gave the guarantor the loan document. Ein goiva cannot collect from the young kids. But if it's written on the side that I received it from you, and this is your receipt. That means that exactly hiskabalti mimcha, I got the payback because of you. So now it's no longer a milva al peh. It's no longer. It's like it's written in a document. So basically, normally a guarantor that pays a loan, it's now the obligation of the kids to pay back the guarantor a verbal loan. But because the guarantor is now holding on to the document, which inside the document it says that he was paid back, the lender was paid back by the guarantor, so then the guarantor could collect from these young Yisayim. So according to Rav Huna ben Yeshua, this could only happen because the guy before he died agreed that he never paid the loan back. So therefore the kids have the responsibility to pay the responsibility to pay back the responsibility to pay back the guarantor. El Rav Papa Kasha, according to Rav Papa, this is all difficult. Aren't they under bar mitzvah? Aren't they not required to pay back a guarantor until they turn over bar mitzvah? And it says the Gemara, once the guy went ahead and got it written in the star by the lender that he got paid off, therefore, by the fact that the guarantor is holding on to a document, he now has a document, and therefore his loan vis-a-vis the father, vis-a-vis the kids, is considered a loan with a document. And therefore, a loan with a document could be collected even when the Yisayim are under bar mitzvah. Now, there's the Gemara, another story. Who Arva, there was this Arab, the guy, this guarantor. Sorry, who Arva, there was a guarantor, the guy. So a Jew loaned money from from a guy. Okay, so now the Jew owes the guy to the money, but he had a friend who was a guarantor. So the guarantor went to the guy. The pari the guy mekamil tevei yasme. The guy who loaned the money, who borrowed the money from the guy, died, and the guarantor went ahead and paid the loan back to the guy. Okay, so everybody would agree so that we never assume that. So Amalei Ramarke Ravashi, Hachi Amar Avima Agroin Mishmei Rava. This is Ramarke said to Ravashi that Rabbi Avina from Hagroin is said in the name of Rava. Even if you're concerned that maybe the Yid paid back the goy, paid back his lender before he died, Hani, meaning that would only be a concern Yisrael if the lender was a Jew. Avagoy, but if the lender was a non-Jew, so therefore the guy certainly didn't pay back the loan. Why didn't he pay the goy back the loan? Because he felt that Kevin the Basra Arva Ozol, because since even after he pays back the loan, unless he gets it cleared in the courts, the goy is going to come collect, double dip, and start collecting from the guarantor. So therefore, the borrower himself did not go pay back the goy because he knows that the goy is going to go after the guarantor. Loi kashin litzrari. So we never concerned that the guy dropped off money to the goy to pay back the loan, and therefore the kids are obligated to pay that loan, what the guarantor did on their behalf. Amalei. So Rav Ashi said to Rav Mordechai, Adarabba, just the opposite. Even if you hold that you don't concern yourself about bundled money, that he paid back the goy, he paid back his lender, but that's only if it's a Jew that's the lender. Aval goyim, even the dayin in Basra Arbi Asle, since the goyim, since they for sure always go after the guarantor, if it wasn't for the fact that the borrower was such a person that was going to definitely pay back the loan, this guy wouldn't have guaranteed the loan, because it's almost like you're guaranteeing nothing. Because when you lend when a Jew lends another Jew money, it's not for sure that he's going to go after the guarantor in case the Jew can't pay. But when a goy lends a Jew money and that Jew can't pay, he's definitely going after the guarantor. So therefore, it must be that the guy, before he died, probably paid the goy back, so that the goy will not go back and collect from the guarantor. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow with another story called Moshe Bar Atzri. Okay, we'll stop right over here.
Thank you.